This episode is brought to you by Mortgage Workflow Partners and the Mastering Encompass series, both for users as well as administrators. You can find out all the information about it over at masteringencompass.com. Also, if you'd like to check out what we're doing on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel using the @MasteringEncompass handle. And make sure you stay up to date on all the information, not just with podcasts, but also video content that we bring to you as often as possible. Now let's get on to the episode. Hey everyone, Larry Bailey, Mortgage Workflow Partners. It is Thursday, July 27th. I cannot believe July is done. Hopefully your end of the month is cruising along in a good way. We meet every Tuesday at 4 p.m., Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern. All things Encompass related, open Q&A, and generally with a topic. Today's topic is all about Input Form Builder on the web. If you're watching this on replay, get your butts here live. That way you can ask all kinds of questions. This is community-based open Q&A. So hopefully those that are here, Bethany, Chris, Jolene, Angela, John, thanks very much for coming at the beginning. And so as you come in, if you have any questions, if you're not the kind that likes to get up on virtual stage and talk or share, go ahead and use the chat. If you do have a problem, you ever want to come, bring it. Do screen share, you can come up on stage and explain to everybody here what's going on and what we can do to fix it. At least try. Let's see what else. If you're watching this on replay and it gets cut off after 5 minutes because it's just a preview, that sucks. You should come over to mortgage.community, masterencompass.com, and check out the full replay. So there we go. There's the intro. People are just rolling in. Thank you very much for those that are coming. Does anyone have any questions at all about anything at all? Rob, just to follow up. So I opened the case. So on Tuesday, we did this whole thing about running dual AUS. I opened a case with ICE, and I'm going to keep the updates coming in the community. But even the response from ICE on activating the interactive conditions within process automation is a little bit sticky. So there was an internal ticket for the new Outlook. We just got added to it. Bethany, what's going on with the new Outlook? Oh, where it's not populating the email messages properly? I actually did hear about this, but I don't know the details. Any other details on that? I'm going to go ahead and share a screen now because I usually forget to share a screen. So we'll do that. Yeah, it doesn't send the email, right? This is my shout out to using SMTP. I always say it anytime I do implementations, especially for TPO implementations, you have to really, really, really give me a good reason not to use SMTP. So Bethany, in your case, are you using Outlook to send emails out of Encompass, or are you using SMTP, or maybe both? Anything on that? Outlook, yes. Sorry, I'm being so aggressive. I would encourage you to really look at going SMTP for everything out of Encompass, especially we're talking about Encompass on the web. Encompass on the web is like on phone, and I don't want my Encompass-based emails having to travel through some device that may not have Outlook. Keep in mind, Encompass doesn't spawn the executable for Outlook. If Outlook's running and it finds it and it sends it, that's great. But yeah, it looks like this. Let me see if I can bring it up without I'll just take a screenshot really quick. Open. So if you go to your Outlook, if you're using Outlook, it's this little toggle button that says New Outlook. That's what we're talking about. But I would, again, I'd really encourage everybody use SMTP for everything always. I'll just leave it at that. Anybody have an argument against SMTP? I'd be interested to hear that one. Do you know what SMTP is? How about that, Bethany? Or is there a reason why your company is against SMTP? One of the bigger problems that you have when you move to SMTP is your exchange administrator doesn't want to have send on behalf of, that kind of nonsense. Just tell them to get over it, and make sure that the users that are sending can send on the behalf of anyone else. That's usually the biggest, that's the only friction I've ever come across, is with some Outlook and some exchange administrator having a problem with sending on behalf of. Yeah, I would encourage you to really check out SMTP, Bethany. If you want to continue this like in the community, please feel free to. And anybody else watching this, I'm really begging you to really start looking at SMTP for everything. Like, get away from Outlook in Encompass. The other thing that comes up a lot in that is, remember that with SMTP, you're creating a mail account to send all emails. That doesn't mean that a single account is sending your email out. What it means is that it's just taking the protocol, so that if I'm sending an email to Bethany through Encompass, the email will still be between me and Bethany, but the way that that email is transmitted through the exchange and through the internet is through an SMTP account. So again, if you want to get into more detail, we can. It's definitely something I encourage on that. So great. I appreciate you bringing that up, Bethany. And again, if you're watching this and you're you're getting this at the end of this part, please go ahead and you're watching the preview. Please get over to the community and watch the full replay. MasteryEncompass.com or mortgage.community. Sign up. It's free to open to anybody, no matter who you work for. So please join. So John says, I want to use SMTP, but I'm dealing with exactly what you just said. I see. I didn't realize there's an issue in it. John, what I would say to your IT team is, first of all, get their boss. Presumably it's a CTO somewhere or president somewhere, and say, hey, listen, you've got data issues in Encompass, because if the user doesn't open up their Outlook, the email's not being sent, even though Encompass records the email being sent. So you have data integrity issues that you're willfully engaging in. Again, it's an aggressive posture, but I'm just aggressive on the topic. So let's talk about, if there's nothing else, let's talk about, anyone know if there's a time where everyone must switch? It's not about the new Outlook. It's about Microsoft switching to Power Apps. So if you don't know what a Power App is, do the research. I would say the answer to your question, John, lies into when Microsoft is going to deprecate the standing executable for all of its Office products. So a Power App is simply O365 on the web acting in the shell of an application. Think about it like an iOS app. Like if you have Outlook on your iOS, it's an app, right? But it still uses the web to kind of distill the information. So it's the same thought concept. So it's not about deprecation of Outlook, and it's not about you must migrate to it. It's more about it's all moving to web-based programs. So again, one more reason, just get your team to switch to SMTP. All right, so let's talk about web input form builder. First of all, has anybody actually created any? Even if it was a long time ago, because we've had web input form builder for quite some time. And the way I like to get there is going to Encompass LO Connect. You can also get here. If you go through web settings. I just like this because I want to work on my full browser. And what we're talking about down here is customization, and specifically custom forms. So Angela, yeah, I looked at it first. Oh God, it feels like 5 years ago. And it might have been, I don't remember exactly, but certainly sometime before 2020. And custom forms. So nothing's really changed in terms of the experience, right? The reason why we have another input form builder to deal with is because of responsiveness. So just as a quick refresh or an introduction for those that aren't aware of this, when you look at your loan in Encompass on the web, you're looking at, what's being shown right now is on a large screen, a 1980 by 720 or something resolution. And what Ellie made before, now ICE has to do is basically break up everything that we're used to in Encompass Desktop and put it into a responsive screen. So if I wanted to come in here and I wanted to do this, right? Let's pretend that was my monitor size. Like, look what it does. Like, you can't do this on, I guess I'll do that. You can't do this on Encompass, right? Desktop. So if we come in and we want to make it here, it's responsive. So the way that you deal with this responsiveness is you have to create an input form that's responsive. And if you've ever done any type of web development at all, you have to make sure, like when you create a web page, you have to do previewing on different sizes, because if you've ever gone to a web page on a computer, it looks totally fine, and then you go to it on your phone, it looks like crap. That's because your web developer was not thinking about multiple sizes. So yeah, Bethany talks about we're able to create the form, but the code is Java, and that's because you created a new form with Java. So rather than worry about Java, JavaScript, which is a whole nother thing, what we're really talking about here is getting into, I just want to kind of introduce this. Also in the replay in the community, I'm going to put the links for a lot of important information that you can find in the Help Center. Also, the Web Input Form Builder Guide, that's a staggeringly long PDF. That's 77 pages with all kinds of stuff in there. Last time it was updated was, I don't know whenever that was. Anyway, I put all this in the community. And what I wanted to share with you was the concept, right? First, I'm going to go create just a brand new one just to kind of see what that looks like for you. And then I'll go into one I created for the test for today to save some time. So when you go to create a new form, it looks fairly simple. You either create a new one from blank, copy an existing form, or input a form. So remember that the Input Form Builder still allows us to create input forms and share them between instances or organizations, if you're allowed. And so in this particular case, I'm just going to create a new form. And right away, you're given the responsibility for choosing your layout. So you either choose a form layout or a card layout. If I choose a form layout, I have to choose how many category boxes am I going down. If I choose a card layout, basically it looks like a panel. And so when you're looking at at this kind of a thing, notice what you don't have. And so who was it that did JavaScript? Bethany. So Bethany, your input form probably looked like this, and you inserted your JavaScript over in here, through your library and those kinds of things. So, that's one way to do it. I wanted to really explore. No, I don't want to save this. The concept of the form layout. And so when you think about a form, you might think about, going 6 category boxes. I'll just do 2 for this. This is what's unique, gang. So when you look at today's input form, you're used to a whole bunch of controls on your left-hand nav. You're used to basically being able to paint with your hands, is what I like to call it. So I can do anything I want with my keyboard and my mouse. I can put pixels next to each other. I can line things up on top of each other. I can overlay things if I want. And I can do whatever I want effectively inside of Desktop Input Form Builder because of the UI. You ain't doing that here. In here, you've got to worry about relativity still, like you do in Desktop Input Form Builder, but you also have to worry about the responsiveness. So when I'm going to close this out and go back over into let's go back over into here. I'm going to go over into Test for Community. So I want to show you what it looks like in the end just so we can talk about it. So some of the things might seem very familiar where you have category boxes, which is what these are. These controls are all category boxes. Category box 1, and I have a whole bunch down below. You can drop group boxes in, but I want you to pay attention to when I drop that in, I'm like, no, I want that down below, and it's you're not able to like slide it down where you want. And the reason why these controls are behaving like this, like if I wanted this drop down box under this text box, it ain't gonna stick there, because what it's really talking about here is responsiveness. So this control, all your controls are over in here, your layout specifically. So this control, if I wanted it to be 1 column width, or if I wanted it to be 9 column widths, that's how I can control it. This little grid helper helps you understand the overall spacing of the control relative to the category box the control is in. And so when we look at, I'm going to bring over on a different browser so I don't screw this one up. Hang on, let me log back in. I'm going to bring over a test input form, another input form that has some of this stuff again already built, so I can kind of line it up side by side, because until you really explore deep in, it's hard to understand what's happening. So if I come over into this guy, all right. So here's a borrower summary origination. That's not what I wanted to do. I want to do this. And then this guy. All right. So when we look at how these things are being built, we see that we've got basically this category box, right? Category box 1 with this borrower information. And then what we did was we had these group boxes split up. Seems familiar. So then within the group box, you can have these other kinds of controls. This controls a drop down, this controls a text box. Again, all looks very, very familiar. And so how it gets structured, you also have the ability to add some elements to the category box header in here. This space, what you see is up here is a checkbox. Over here, I put Mortgage Workflow Partners logo, these kinds of things. So it feels familiar. One of the things that's very important to understand is the user interface and how far somebody's willing to go down the screen, depending on how big their screen is. So when I look at this, I have this kind of responsiveness. And when I look at it this way, it's got a much wider responsiveness to it for different parts. But notice that nothing slid. It stayed in position. It just got bigger. And that's really the lesson that I wanted to really show the group here today, is that when you're looking at your current input forms, it's not like you have to worry about this tomorrow. But if you start thinking about your own input forms, and if your business starts to really get into you on, hey, we want to have more people start using Encompass on the web because either of functionality or because of task-based workflows or because of having loan officers use the opportunities to quickly go through things. This is kind of what you're dealing with over in the actual loan file. You've got your forms, which are laid out as described by ICE. And then down here at the bottom, you've got your custom input forms. And then here's that test for community. So you can see how it kind of lays out. It's not developed. So obviously there's just a ton of blankness, but it gives you that specific kind of layout that feels not too different from what is a standard input form on the web. Presuming it loads here. And so that's what I want to that was the point of today. I've been talking about Encompass on the web for a little bit, off and on for the past couple of years. And what I'm watching happening is ICE putting more R&D and more functionality into the web. You're watching me break it, obviously. But the idea is at least start to understand what's available. so that if you end up your business ends up hiring somebody from another company that's used to the web for whatever reason that made their job better. Again, it could be for task-based workflows. It could be for LOs who are used to working opportunities out of here. I want to make sure that you're ahead of that curve. So I'm just going to refresh. I don't know what happened here. So Brett says responsiveness is great, except when you use the workflow and task workspaces. If you used in the split pane, it will reorganize the page. You need to test crazy if your intent is to use that way. So Brett, when you're talking about that, you're talking about getting into workflow tasks in here. Like, walk me through what you mean. So when you're dealing with workflow tasks, oh, you mean in here? You mean if you create? Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Right. So if you're expecting to use a specific thing, remember that in the admin setup for the tasks. So this is touching back on what we talked about with the workspaces for workflow tasks. In my particular workspace, I use standard forms. So to Brett's point, if we go over into custom forms, sorry, I'm totally losing my voice. So if you built something in here, and I click done on this, and I go down in here and I say left pane, I want this to be the test for community, save that. All right, so that's live now. So I go back over into pipeline. Try again. I go back into pipeline. I go back into my loan file. I could have gone to the tasks from the beginning, maybe. I go into tools, go to workflow tasks, go into that appraisal. It's going to load over here, test for community. So to Brett's point, make sure this works the way you want it to. Right, Brett? That's what you're getting at. And I think that's great. You know, something I hadn't thought of, but definitely this is all new territory for mostly everybody. So yeah, and I would even take it a step further. I think this is really speaking to making sure that you're now taking on another job, which is to test with Encompass on the web. You need to test responsiveness for your team using it. So not only do you have to worry about the responsiveness of, is the loan officer are we using iPads? Are we really expecting them to like do work on their phone? Like, is that realistic? And you'll have to deal with that to manage expectations. But I would even go further and say, listen, I'm on a 24-inch screen, which is what I'm sharing with you on. What if somebody's working on a 15-inch laptop? What's that look like? And so when you go into your admin and you come down into your form builder, you do have the ability to preview different sizes. So Brett, I don't know if you did this when you were doing your testing for what you're talking about, but when you come over into the form, you can preview and you can do your different sizes. So, you know, maybe you want to look at a small to see what that looks like, because that kind of looks like the task workflow space as far as that 768 pixel. If you want to see what it looks like on mobile, you can do that. It's also important to note that let's see if I can make a change and see if it'll do it for me. So when I go to click change, it's letting you know that there's non-compatible items selected below for mobile, because when I created the form, I said I wanted to be responsive on different platforms, one being desktop and another being mobile. So what it's telling you is, hey, admin, make sure that these elements aren't important to you if your user is going to be working on a mobile device. So keep in mind of these little bullets, letting you know that you have non-compatible items if you expect this input form to be used on mobile. So that's an important takeaway too. Any questions? Wait, Angela had a question. I'll get right back to your comment, Brett. So Angela said, along with what you mentioned, what are some other selling points on an admin that could get the staff to use? And Angela, my whole thing on Encompass on the web is you got to wait for bigger fish to lead the way. Like, I'm never going to push Encompass on the web without value. So Encompass on the web is useful right now for task-based workflow, for loan officers, and I did this a year and a half ago when I was doing some origination stuff for a small company, and I wanted to check pipelines real quick. Encompass on the web was awesome. Like I can get to my whole pipeline on my iPhone, and I had a pipeline view set up for estimated closings for the month. And it was like, boom, done. I can find that stuff out anywhere I want. So those are some immediate use cases for today. We'll see where ICE takes Encompass on the web, you know, and how it works for the end of the year. I'd say come back to that question in 5 months, Angela. Brett says, I do. We specifically use a workspace so that each task basically has a form that fits. That's very direct to what they're doing for that task. Some of the larger ones, you get adjusted quite a bit. Wait, so Brett, are you using task-based workflows in your daily routine, like in your operations? Dude, would you mind, like some point next month, walking us through what you do as a community? Because you're the first one I've actually come across that's actually using task-based in real life. So we're waiting for Brett. Bethany asks, is there any way around using JavaScript? Well, so I didn't get into events, right? So when you get into events, this is where you get into JavaScript behavior. Also, if you're building your form with JavaScript, Bethany, there's not a way to get away from it. Because there's just not. So one of the things that came out when Input Form Builder on the web first came out was companies were like, dude, I don't have to use this. I can just build my web page using JavaScript and just pop it into Encompass on the web. To which I said, that's awesome. Now, company, you're forever locked into web developers. If that's your thing, great. If you're doing this like on the side, what are you going to do one day when something breaks? Like, where are your developers? So Bethany, that's my feedback for you is if you're required, if that's your path that you're choosing, then you're choosing that path, but you don't have to build input forms with JavaScript. If you choose to do that because you want specific functionality, I get it. And I'm for your decision as long as it works and as long as you understand that's what you're choosing to do forever. Brett added to my comment, my request for live show. There's actual process stuff in there. Okay. I mean, I appreciate you considering it. The reason why I thought it was important is because one of the, just like on today, is anybody else doing it? And Brett, if you guys are doing it, maybe just the value props as to why you're doing it and who you're doing it for. Maybe not the actual display, but maybe just talking as to, how your business came to choose, what was involved, what were the pitfalls, what were the advantages, how it's going, what is your daily maintenance? Like I can come up with a bunch of interview style questions versus you sharing screen. Maybe that's a little bit easier to get approval. Okay, you can absolutely do that. All right, cool. All right, well then I'm going to do that as a takeaway. We'll do like a Q&A of using task-based workflows for Reels. Brett, let me know, any Tuesday and Thursdays in mid-August to late August that work for you, if you want. Up to you. You choose. Cool. Yeah, that sounds awesome. That sounds exciting. I'd love to know more. Yeah, John, everybody would love to see that. Again, it's like confirmation of concept to reality is everybody's gotcha. Like I could talk out my ass about how great it is, but I'm not running a mortgage company. So, back to Bethany's comment, there's no other language like C# that could be used, I believe. So if you want to use, is that I took the question differently. So thanks, Angela, for going back to Bethany's. So Bethany, maybe you can clarify. I thought you were trying to not use JavaScript to build input forms. Angela thinks you might be wanting to use a different language in JavaScript. And the answer is no. It's web-based, it's JavaScript. But if you don't want to use JavaScript to develop, then you have to use the what you see, what you get here from the elements to build it. So hopefully that's helpful somewhere in there. Thanks, Angela, for that perspective. I don't know, Rob. I don't know about using JSON to build an input form. Let's go to here, and let's go to here, and let's look for JSON. And so custom fields ID, if you select a custom field, the field still stay, I guess it's bad English. If you select a custom field ID, the fields still stay on the JSON schema that's exported and imported into a new instance. That's the only reference to JSON in there, Rob. Angela's saying JSON is used. So Angela, maybe when we do our thing with Brett, maybe you can speak to JSON because again, I'm not a web developer. So, hey, for those that have a hard stop, again, we try to respect everyone's time. So 30 minutes is at it. As always, we hit you hard with a lot of stuff. And yeah, Cheryl, again, 2 years ago, I get, but it's a lot's happened in the last 2 years. Actually, a lot's happened in the last 6 months. So I would give it a different look and see if there's anything in here that floats your boat. And I'd say leverage the community for more information. Sounds like we've got a couple experts here, and we will we'll do this like a interview style, and get some more information. Sounds like we got some traction. So Brett, thanks for offering for that. Everybody else, have a great day. Thanks as always. Really appreciate you always coming to these and keeping company and learning together. So have a great day, everybody. I'll put the replay up. Again, Tuesdays, 4 p.m., Thursdays, 1 p.m. Get over here and see us, masterencompass.com or mortgage.community. Everybody have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.